Hello, everyone, and welcome to the proposed remediation plan meeting for the Union City property. My name is Asha Sethi, and I work for the California Department of Toxic Substances Control. This meeting is being recorded. There's closed captions available, which you can find by clicking on the CC icon. You might need to go over to the three dots to find that. There is interpretation available in Spanish and Chinese, and we'll go over those instructions in just a minute. Next slide, please. We would like to ask that everybody select a language. We haven't turned on the interpretation feature quite yet, but after we go through the instructions, we'll be turning that feature on. So you'll go and click on the globe interpretation icon and select your language. And the reason is if there's any information that the interpreters want to share, it'll come in on the English channel. The next slide, please. And I'd like to invite the interpreters to go over the instructions in Spanish and Chinese. So let's have our Spanish interpreter go first.
En los controles de la reunión o el seminario web, haga clic en Interpretación. Haga clic en el idioma que desee escuchar, español, Spanish. Y opcional, para escuchar solo el idioma interpretado, haga clic en Silenciar audio original.
Great, thank you. And let's have our Chinese interpreter next.
感謝今日各位嘅與會者啦。喺今次嘅會議網絡研討會期間，我哋有個控制軟件，佢就係 Zoom。你想使用我哋嘅翻譯功能，就點選我哋上面嘅 Interpretation， 或者係你中文版本嘅翻譯。如果你想聽到嘅語言咧，請點選 Select the Language 或者係語言選項，點選 Cantonese 或者係 Mandarin 國語或者係粵語。第三係自由選擇。如果你僅想收聽翻譯嘅語言嘅話咧，請點擊 Mute Original Audio 原音靜音。唔該晒 ，Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. I'd like to go over how to participate in this Zoom meeting. You have a couple different options. You can either raise your hand, and since this is a Zoom meeting, you can find that by looking for the reactions icon. And once you click on that, you'll find the raise hand feature. And the other way is that you can click on the Q&A icon that's in the middle of your screen in the toolbar below. And then for those calling in, you'll have to dial *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute. We would like to ask if you could hold your questions until the end, and I'll be checking with the interpreters and phone calls and Q&A. The next slide, please. Next, I'll go over the agenda for this presentation. First, we're going to have Marika Hughes, who's the unit chief for the Site Mitigation and Restoration Program, go over introductions and a DTSC overview. And then Elizabeth Chung, who's the project manager for the site, is going to go over the project background, the proposed remediation plan, and next steps. And then we'll open it up for public input. That's it for opening announcements, and I'd like to turn it over to Marika.
Next slide, please. Hi, my name is Marika Hughes. I am a unit chief in the Berkeley office of DTSC in the Site Mitigation and Restoration Program. In order to introduce our staff, I'd like to introduce our staff. Asha Sethi, our public participation specialist, Elizabeth Chung, our project manager on this project. Alex Woodward is our geologist. Chin Vu is our engineer. Uta Hellman-Bloomberg is our toxicologist. In addition, we have been working with other regulatory agencies, including the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board and the Alameda County Water District. The responsible party for this project is the Station East Owner LLC, and their consultants include Farallon and Craig Communications. Next slide, please. First, I want to give you an overview of what DTSC does and is. DTSC is one of 6 agencies within the California Environmental Protection Agency, also known as Cal EPA, which includes the Water Board. DTSC's mission is to protect California's people, communities, and environment from toxic substances and to enhance economic vitality by restoring contaminated lands, enforcing hazardous substances laws, and compelling safer consumer products. The Site Mitigation and Restoration Program, which is what Liz and I are a part of, is responsible for overseeing the evaluation and cleanup of contaminated properties. Next slide, please. And here is a very brief overview of the cleanup process. Typically, a site will come to us, and that is when we do assessment and investigation. Then we move towards planning our cleanup, which is also when we have a public comment period in terms of deciding the remedy. The next step is implementing that cleanup. And finally, we move to certification and stewardship. Currently, what we are here for today is to discuss the planning of cleanup. Next slide, please. And I will hand it over to Liz.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Chong, and I'm the DTSC project manager for Union City Property site. The site is located at 33945, 33995, and 34051 on 7th Street. The site has two areas. The 700 Dakota Road in yellow it was the former air gas manufacturing facility. And the Station East, which is in blue, the 18.7 acre site, that is the site that we are going to talk about tonight. I'm just showing two areas because both areas are going to be developed into residential and commercial use. As you see up in the north across the site, there is a green area. That is the former McKesson Chemical Company. Currently, Water Board is overseeing McKesson sites, and previously in the historical use, McKesson has released some chemical into the environment because of operation, and it has contaminated the soil and groundwater. The red arrow that you see there is to show that the groundwater has contaminated from the former McKesson chemical sites, and it has traveled into the Station East area in the groundwater and soil gas. There are two distinctive contamination sources that we will be talking about today. One contamination source is coming from the former McKesson Chemical Company, as I mentioned before, and the other one is coming from on-site, from previous agricultural use and other commercial uses. Next slide, please. This is a view of the sites on Bradford Way. Next slide, please. So why is DTSC involved? Historical activities such as agricultural, trucking company, and rail operation contaminated the sites, and it needs to be remediated before developing into a residential or commercial use. Previous environmental investigation found contamination in soil, soil vapor, and groundwater. The proposed development only on the Station East area has 850 residential units. It's going to have residential retail spaces and open parks. The figure in the development plan has been submitted to the city of Union City. And then you also can see the development plan that is going to be happening in the future in the former air gas area. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about the McKesson Chemical Facility. So we know that where some of the contamination is coming on site. The former McKesson Chemical Facility, I'm just gonna call it McKesson from now on, operated a mixing and packing chemical facility for 15 years in this area. Since 1986, McKesson implemented various cleanup actions under the Regional Water Quality Control Board and install a pump and treat remediation system for the groundwater at Union City property sites. For this development and cleanup process, the Water Board, DTSC, and the Alameda County Water District are working collaboratively. Next slide, please. This figure is showing the contaminated plume. An area is basically the groundwater that has been contaminated with chlorinated solvent from McKesson operation, and the chlorinated solvent are such as trichloroethylene or TCE and tetrachloroethylene or PCE. These chemicals are usually regularly used previously in the past in dry cleaning operations and in cleaning products. When the chemical were released into the environment, it contaminated the groundwater and traveled off-site. The red outline in the figure is the Union City site, and you can see that the contamination has reached the site. The square dot that looks like a domino dot, that is the location of the extraction wells that has been installed by McKesson under the Water Board oversight. The pump and treat system works as a vacuum, sucking the groundwater, and it will bring the contaminated groundwater into a treatment system, which is released later on after being treated. There are also some monitoring wells in the on-site and also south of the site, just to make sure that the contamination is not traveling farther away to the south. Next slide, please. Previous investigation indicated that soil, groundwater, and soil vapor are contaminated with chemicals of concern. Metals such as arsenic, lead, hexavalent chromium, cobalt, and nickel, pesticide, and diesel fuel were found in soil. And chlorinated solvent that we talked about previously were found in groundwater and soil vapor. Next slide, please. So what are you going to find when you're reviewing the draft remediation plan? The remediation plan has sections such as the remediation action objective. Is the objective that this plan is proposing, and there's 4 objectives that they're proposing. 1 is protecting human health and the environment. 2, compliance with the regulatory requirements. 3, install cost-effective remediation. 4, preference for permanent remedy. Also, you will see sections in the proposed cleanup level, evaluate health risk, identify and select the best available and feasible remediation, and some explanation of and reasons of the proposed remedies. Next slide, please. So what are the proposed remedy? For soil excavation and offsite disposal is proposed. It is planned to excavate the upper 2.5 feet in the area. I don't know if somebody can point the area where it's been excavated, where you see the color of margan and pink and purple, some shade of pink colors. All that area is going to be excavated. That is about 38,500 cubic yards of soil, and that is estimated to be about 3,040 truckloads. The proposed remedy for soil vapor is to install vapor barrier under all building with a venting system underneath the foundation. And also soil vapor extraction and treatment system will be installed in the area where you see the green outline. Can you please point the green outline? So the soil extraction and treatment system is like a vacuum. just same as the groundwater. However, this is going to be a vacuum that will suck the contaminated soil vapor. And then it will also release into a treatment center where this vapor is going to be treated. And later in the presentation, we will go more into detail of these remedies. Okay, next slide, please. Now you wonder, wow, it's a 3,040 truckload, and where is it going? Trucks will follow the city-approved routes that limits traffic through local neighborhood, especially near residential area. Soil excavation is planned to be implemented this summer in 2023. The routes were carefully selected to minimize impacts to the residential neighborhood. The peak excavation activity, it might happen to be estimated 5 weeks long, and excavation and hauling activity can be plus minus as well of 5 weeks. A more detailed soil management plan will be submitted to DTSC after this remedial plan draft is approved. And they're gonna give us a more detail of the excavation work and transportation. The map shows the route that the truck will be taking. Can you please point the yellow line? So what's going to happen is the truck will be exiting and entering through the 7th and Bradford Way, and will proceed to north to 7th Street. And from 7th Street, you'll proceed to Dakota Road. And on Dakota Road, it will go toward intersection 880. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're moving into the soil vapor. So what is vapor intrusion? The figure does not represent the actual development plan. It is as an illustration to show you a concept of what vapor intrusion is and the installation of the remedy. Vapor intrusion occurs when vapor forming chemical travels from groundwater, and you see the groundwater on the bottom, and soil vapor into a building. So for example, the chlorinated solvent that was found in the groundwater in soil vapor can travel into the building through cracks and opening that was made when a sewer system or some type of pipe was installed in the building. Vapor intrusion mitigation system that consists of barrier and venting pipe that is installed underneath the foundation of a building. Click, thank you. The blue line that you see under the foundation, that's a barrier. And the purple line that you see under the barrier, that's a pipe. So the pipe is perforated and it will function as a vacuum, kind of sucking the air of underneath the foundation. The venting system can be passive or active. For this development, they're planning to make it something that is passive that can turn on to active. So what is passive? Passive just means the pipe will be connected into a exhaust that you see on the side of the house, and it's not going to have any power fan that can, suck the air like you see in, like the one that you see on top of your stove. The active system is a same design. However, it will have a fan that will run to suck the air from under the foundation. When the system is installed properly, the system will prevent the vapor from traveling into the buildings. Next slide, please. Another remedy selected for soil vapor contamination is the soil vapor extraction and treatment system, or the pump and treat system. The area of the site that has higher level of contamination in soil vapor and groundwater we are planning to, McKesson is going to help and Water Board collaboratively with DTSC. They will be installing a pumpetry system on site. The system is a set of several vacuum pipes, and you see the pipe that is installed called the SPE extraction wells. Those are the pipes that will be installed underneath the ground. And those pipe also works as a vacuum system that sucks the vacuum into the treatment system. And the treatment system will treat the vacuum and release into the atmosphere. Bay Area Air Quality Management District needs to approve of this release. Next slide, please. These are the proposed remedies for soil vapor contamination. We talked about vapor intrusion mitigation system. We talked about soil vapor extraction system. Also, the proposed remedy is recording land use restriction with Alameda County, prohibiting future building without vapor intrusion mitigation system, and protecting the system from restricting activity that can affect the integrity of the system. So what activity could be? It could be anything from just excavating, vandalism, or just turning off the power, redesigning or fixing the piping, and any activity that can alter, it will be restricted, and it needs to be approved by the department. A restriction to groundwater use and will be also recorded with the Alameda County. It will restrict activity that can damage the integrity of the groundwater pump and treat system. The vapor extraction system is planned to be installed in summer 2024. The extraction will be recorded. The restriction will be recorded once the installation of all remedy is finalized. Next slide, please. What is the next step after public review period for today? DTSC will consider all public comments, and draft will be revised if needed. A responsiveness summary will be provided to respond to all the comments and questions, and it will be attached to a final wrap as an appendix. The developer will provide to DTSC a community air monitoring plan prior starting to excavate. The monitoring plan will have detailed information such as method to monitor fugitive dust, action lever to stop work, how to monitor the wind, the weather, and how to protect the near community. Extraction will happen this summer, 2023. Soil vapor extraction system will be installed in 2024. And other remedy, such as barrier and venting system, will be installed parallel with the construction. When the installation of remedy is finalized, a operation, monitoring, and maintenance plan will be submitted to DTSC for review approval, and the restrictions will be recorded with Alameda County. Next slide, please. While implementing with the selected remedy, the community will be protected by closing the work area with fence, and an emergency contact information will be posted on the fence. It will be contact for DTSC, consultant, and the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. Air will be monitored upwind, downwind, and in the parameter of the site. Noise will also be monitored for the construction worker. Water or plastic sheeting will be used to control dust. Truck loads will be covered. The tires will be cleaned, and the trucks will be inspected prior to leave the site. Flagger will be also on site to manage the traffic. And DTSC work notice will be distributed prior starting each phase of work. Next slide, please. How do we know that the installed remedy is protected or of the future residents? DTSC will evaluate the effectiveness of the remedy prior occupancy. Indoor and underneath the foundation vapor will be evaluated to make sure that it is safe to move into the future buildings. And we'll oversee long-term maintenance as well. The long-term maintenance could be a periodic evaluation of the effectiveness of the remedy after occupancy, an opportunity for public review of the draft 5-year review. The long-term operation and maintenance plan to keep protecting future residents and monitoring and maintaining the system regularly to ensure that they maintain effective. Next slide, please. As a summary of this presentation, I would like to communicate the message that DTSC is committed to protect human health and the environment. The cleanup of the site will create new home and it will protect of the new residents and workers. During the cleanup process, DTSC is committed to protect the community. And now I will pass it to Asha.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation, Liz. Next slide, please. That was a lot of information to cover, and soon we'd like to hear from you. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that the public comment period will go through April 5th, and we'd like to hear from you tonight. If you have thoughts that come up after tonight's meeting, I'm happy to get your comments by email, by mail, or by phone. Just please address your comments to Liz. There's mailing address and email and her phone number here. And any of the comments that we receive after the meeting today, we will be addressing in writing. Next slide, please. Just want to make sure you know where to find a copy of the draft remediation plan. Locally, you've got your Union City Library. You can go and find a hard copy of the draft remediation plan to review. We also have a copy at our Berkeley Regional Office. If you prefer to review the plan online, you can do so at our EnviroStore database listed here. What you do is you type in Union City property and you select that from the drop-down menu. And to find the documents to review, you'll have to click on the Community Involvement tab. There's also the opportunity to sign up to receive email alerts whenever we upload new technical documents. And if you need help navigating EnviroStore, please don't hesitate to reach out and I can show you the ropes. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation. And now we want to hear from you. Just want to make sure you know how to participate here. You can either raise your hand, and the way you find that, this is a Zoom meeting, you go to the bottom toolbar and you look for the reactions. It's a smiley face icon, and when you click on that, you'll see the raise hand button. You could do that, or you can click on the Q&A icon and you can type in a comment and we'll read it out loud. And for those of you that are calling in, I see a couple of phone numbers here. If you're not also on Zoom and you want to participate through the phone, then you'll have to dial *9 to get into the queue, and that's how we'll see your hand raised. And then once we call on you, you'll dial *6 in order to unmute yourself. So I see that Subru's got his hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, Asha, thanks for the excellent presentation from Liz, as well as your comments. And I also want to thank you for all the email communications I've been following very closely, as I live very close to this property. So overall, if you ask me, my feedback to you is keep up the good work that you have been doing, and that's all my 2 cents to you. Excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Subru. We're going to be relying on you out there as our eyes and ears when, if we approve this plan and once implementation's in place, we'll be relying on you to make sure that everything is going well with all of our mitigation measures. Do we have any other questions or comments from anybody on Zoom or on the phone? We're also happy to go over, any additional information. If we, want us to reiterate any of the content that we've already provided. We do have our geologist and toxicologist and engineer on the line with us. Looks like we've got a caller on the phone ending in 1797. Go ahead and dial *6 to unmute yourself. We should be able to hear you.
Yes, the name's Charles Cameron. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation so far tonight. Listen, regarding the McKisson property, from 1986, did McKisson know all those chemicals would leak into the soil? And being that they were there 15 years, did they know this was happening? The second thing, your address on 700 Hines Street in Berkeley, what is the cross street and what AC Transit bus serves that area?
Thanks for the questions. Yeah, I can take...
I have another couple of questions.
Oh, you have another. Oh, okay. Do you want us to take one at a time, or do you want to just lay them all on us and we go one by one?
Well, let me lay one of them on.
Go for it.
First of all, I would have thought you would have told the audience and the participants where the dump sites are, their remediation sites are. I already know one of the sites are in Livermore, and I already know one of the other sites are in Morgan Hill, California, on the peninsula. And I already understand now, as per the words to the effect, you went the least detrimental to the residential neighborhood regarding the residents of leaving the property and turning right to go to Mission, and all the residential property on Mission Boulevard in Union City, and all the residential property in Fremont. There's more residents there, and the least residents and possibly better area, true, is going southwest to 880 and then 680. So, and the follow-up question, being that 705 Buford Way is currently the temporary or permanent operations of the Dumbarton Express, the DB1 and the DB1 that is operated by AC Transit for the consortium of Union City Transit, Samtrans, and VTA, and possibly another carrier. Where are they to be located? And regarding the participation list, there was no participation contact for BART or AC Transit on the listing. And with all the types of people, to include our current assembly person named Ms. Liz Ortiz. She only got elected in November last year, but yet the participation list is dated October 21st, 2022. So, and then, of course, all types of people that are passed on, to include former Supervisor Rich Valle, and then current U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein, she's retiring, and
Let us
people.
answer your questions, please. Don't give us a lecture.
Well, I'm giving the lecture. I'm telling you, how come they were there and other people weren't?
Hey, come on,
Charles.
let them answer your question first,
All right.
okay?
So we've got a number of notes here, so we'll just go through them one by one here. So your first, and your name is Charles, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So your first question was about McKesson and didn't they know about the chemicals? And so Liz, do you want to take that one, or do you want someone from the water board to address that?
Yeah, the one about McKesson dumping or accidentally releasing chemicals. We are not the lead for the site, and I mean, there's more information in the geo tracker of in the water board website. We know that the operation has led to accidental releases of this chemical that was used very often in the previous years when it was not very well regulated. However, they have stopped, and I understand that they did already some cleanups on the site, and they even have residential homes on it.
Okay, that's a good enough answer. That's a good enough answer.
Okay, and if there's anybody else from the project team that would like to add on to what Liz had to say, please feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next question that Charles posed. Cherie, I see your camera's on. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Cherie McCullough. I'm a case manager for the McKesson Chemical property, and they actually.
And Cherie works for the water board.
Yes, I work for the Regional Water Quality Control Board. The McKesson facility was investigated for as early as the 1980s. So they weren't, they were actually doing investigations and trying to delineate the chemicals that had leached into the soil and the groundwater, and the soil underneath the ground there has channels, like stream channels, very, very porous soil, so that if you spill a little drop of one chemical, once it hits the groundwater, you could spread a long way. So they've been doing cleanup since the 1980s, and they've done excavation, groundwater pump and treat, soil vapor extraction. All the homes that were built were designed with vapor barriers, and they do groundwater monitoring and soil vapor monitoring. They also do indoor air monitoring. So they're still doing cleanup. They're still doing verification monitoring, and they're committed to cleaning up. So does that answer your question?
Well, yes, it pretty much did, and I'll let you solve the problem. You know what I mean?
Well,
okay.
We'll do that. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, we'll be coordinating very closely with the water board to make sure that the neighborhood is protected. So your next question was the location of our office, and we're on Hines Street. at 7th would be the closest cross street. And there's some really good transit to get over there from Ashby Bart. There's a Emory Go Round shuttle, but it might be quite a bit closer for you just to go in your local neighborhood to the Union City Library. But of course, you're welcome to come and visit us, although we're all mostly teleworking now, so we might not see you, but you are welcome to the office to review documents. And your third question, I thought was really good.
Well, getting back to, so anyway, there's almost no direct AC transit bus within a block or two from
You know, there should be on San Pablo because the next cross street. So there's a lot of transit.
Do you take public transit?
I do. And, you know, it really depends on where you're coming from, but San Pablo does have a number of buses running along it. So you should have some good options there. So I'm just going to move us on to your next question, which I thought was really good, related to what are the landfill sites that the material is going to be taken to. Who on the project team would like to share information about where those sites are located?
At least maybe Alex wants to jump in.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. Specific landfills haven't been selected for offsite disposal of soils for the site. That'll be sorted out when we have the soil management plan, which is a document that is forthcoming. But all the soil that leaves the site is going to be characterized, and based on the results of that characterization, it'll be transferred to an appropriate landfill. If it meets the hazardous waste criteria, it'll be transferred to a hazardous waste landfill. If it's below that criteria, it might be transferred to more local landfills if it meets the requirements. That kind of depends on the receiving landfill, their requirements.
And what are some examples
as per the information in the big binder and the binders, I understand one landfill is in Livermore and one landfill is in Morgan Hill, California. So are they not in the picture, or do you have others?
That's a good question. Yeah, if you could, if someone could speak to specific landfills that would be potential destinations, that would be helpful.
So the plan, the draft that we have right now, it names 2 landfill. They're just I think they're landfill that they accept any waste that's not hazardous substances, and those are already kind of pre-planned, and it's more likely that those 2 will be used for soil that has no contamination. If we excavate the soil and then when we sample it and we see that there's high concentration of hazardous, metal or pesticide, then we will be taking it to a different hazardous waste facility, and that one has not been determined yet. That one, the more detail of where this facility is going to be, we'll be receiving it in the soil management plan documents, which they will be submitting to us pretty soon.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then your last question, I'm not sure we have an answer to it, but it had to do with Dumbarton Express operations at 705 Bradford Way. Is there anyone that can speak to that, or could we direct them to somebody who would know the answer?
And first of all, regarding the participation list, how come AC Transit and BART were not on the list? All those types of BART wants to get people back on their trains, and if you're going to have more congestion to getting through the intersection of BART Way and Dakota Road, and to include 7th and Dakota, it's going to gum up things, and people are going to drive, and that BART, and you're going to have more congestion in Union City. And of course, all the moms that are going to be impacted with school kids and what have you. It's rough enough in the AM and PM, Monday through Friday, coming through from Mission Boulevard all the way down to Fremont Boulevard on Dakota Road. It's tight.
Charles, you're referring to something called a participation list. Could you clarify what it is that you're referring to?
Well, there's heavy congestion on Dakota Road from Mission Boulevard all the way to Fremont Boulevard, east and west on Dakota Road. And any type of snag, gum ups, fender benders, screw things up, to include all the construction of undergrounding wires on Dakota Road, is just compounds the issue for buses and other POVs and commercial traffic.
All right.
It's going from bad to worse to worser.
All right. Thank you for your comment. I see a hand raised and we have a Q&A. Let's see, Division Chief D. Thomas.
Hi. Yes, hi. This is Derek Thomas with the Alameda County Fire Department. And thank you for your time. And I just had a question as far as immediate threat or toxicity. What are we looking at, like, just for the residents that's right across? So one of the concerns is for our firefighters at Station 33. So are they okay to drink the water, take showers in the water, or work outside or in the garden area? Or what's our immediate concerns as of today?
Thanks for the question.
I can take that if you'd like. As regards the water that you are probably using at the fire station, I believe it is supplied by the municipality, so by the city, or I guess Alameda County Water District, and therefore it should be safe for use. It should not be impacted by any of the contamination that originated from the McKesson site. I hope that answers your question.
And did you have follow-ups to that related to the water? Did you have any other specific question? You mentioned immediate threat or toxicity.
Yes, just anything just in the nature of being airborne. I know the two chemicals that was identified as far as potential vapors, because we did have some testing around the fire station. So these are some of the questions that's coming up from our firefighters. So I'm just trying to get some clarification. Is
that something the toxicologists want to jump in, or Liz or Marika? Anyone want to speak a little bit more about that?
I think it might be best if Uta speaks to that, but I believe this might be something that we need to get back to you on as well, simply because I'm not entirely certain where the fire station is located, and I would need time to look at a figure and identify what sort of activities in terms of investigation had happened nearby. So it might be a follow-up.
And I can explain something. So we have been Liz has been talking about vapor intrusion, and so how the vapors that are coming off from the groundwater from deep down, which is pretty deep, how they come into the buildings. But that's different from vapors just coming out anywhere without buildings. So the buildings sitting on top of the ground, they create some vacuum that facilitates the movement of these chemical vapors, like PCEs. It's used for dry cleaning and for in computer building and things like that. So anyway, so that through the heating and air conditioning of the buildings, it gets sucked into the buildings that are right on top of that. But it's not like it comes out randomly and floats around the city. So that's the mechanics of the vapors moving around. So I don't know if that helps with your concern.
Yes, and I can follow up at a later date too. I know there's additional testing going on, but I was just trying to get ahead of some of the questions that's coming from our members in reference of their concern. Just like the citizens within the city as well. We're all equally concerned, but thank you for your answers.
Great, thank you. And do you want to share with us, let's see, the address for your fire station? Because it could be that the water board has done some sampling in that area.
Yes, they have. It's right across from the site. So it's 339-427 in Union City, 94587.
Yeah,
Right.
I know where the fire station is. It's just adjacent to the McKesson site. And it seems like water war already have asked McKesson to do some indoor air and soil vapor sample around the area. As a vapors in soil vapor would not just like release into the air and then you're gonna be breathing when you're outside of the building. I guess the only concern that you have when we talk about vapor intrusion is what happened is the house has cracks and then the vapor will go into the house as a vacuum and it starts to concentrate in the indoors because your windows are closed, your doors are closed, and that's when it becomes hazard. When you're outside, when it's ventilating or outdoor, it doesn't have any effects.
Okay, thank you. I guess moving forward, what I can do is work with the city and maybe do a survey of the structure and make sure we don't have any cracks or anything that's exterior. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Okay, now we're going to move to the Q&A. Angelica, you have a couple of questions. If you'd like to unmute yourself and ask them, that's great. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and read them out loud. So the first question from Angelica has to do with the HVAC system. I'm not sure exactly, this may have come out during the presentation, but her first question is, how is that even possible? HVAC systems always need repairs and updates. What is the likelihood people may develop health issues or birth defects? It looks like Chin, you are in the process of typing an answer. Do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and respond to Angelica's question? And Angelica, if you want to provide us with further clarification, please do.
Hello, Angelica. This is Chin with DTSC. I'm with an engineering group. And regarding the vapor mitigation itself, it will be inspected at least annually, and the effectiveness will be monitored through sampling. And I think Elizabeth briefly mentioned this earlier, but the proposed passive system has no electrical component to the system itself. So it essentially is just a vent pipe likely to the side of the house. We don't know what the exact design will be, but has no electrical component like an HVAC system.
Okay, hi, it's Angelica. Thank you for responding. So I was actually responding to Marika Hughes. She said regarding I'll just read it because I was sending a message in the chat. It says regarding the vapor intrusion mitigation systems, yes, these will operate indefinitely, because I wanted to know how, was it for 5 years? Was it for 10 years? And she's saying it's indefinitely, and they're going to be monitored as long as the homes are at that site. And then she said if a system fails, they will be repaired as soon as the failure is identified. So future residents should not be exposed to contamination and vapor as long as the systems are operating effectively. So that's kind of where this question came from.
I see. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I read it out of order there.
No problem. I just was a little bit, my next question or statement in there was, can she elaborate on the vapors that are coming out? I think you guys keep saying, it's going to be built on this foundation and there's a pipe and the vapors are going to be let out somewhere, and it sounds like there's not a for sure design. And I'm hearing that they can travel in the air and we're not outside, it's not a confined area, so it's not going to affect us. But I mean, I'm not a science major, but that doesn't sound good to me, so that we're walking around breathing that. I mean, I've lived here many years, and all that contamination is, 2.5 feet, I think, or underneath the ground, not necessarily coming up, and now it's going to come up, and it's alarming, to be honest.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Would one of our toxicologists, Uta or Brian, like to describe a little bit more about her concerns and the vapors in the area?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what I tried to explain earlier, that the vapors, I mean, they will not get to you in a high concentration when you are outside. So one of the fundamental principles of toxicology, which is the science of the toxicity of various substances, is that it says that's the doses that makes a thing a poison. That's an old principle, but what it says is you need to have a certain amount from a certain poisons to have an effect. And so what happens is in the air, if you're outside, the concentration does not reach, it does not get to the point where it has an effect. So a substance is only toxic if the amount is greater than the toxic threshold, and that will not be reached when you are outside.
Is there anything else? Yeah. I was just going to invite Brian because I saw his camera came on earlier. If you wanted to add on anything, Brian.
Yeah, sure. Essentially, yeah, what happens, you're trying to protect people living inside a confined space, a building, because when a building is built over the top, like a home or something, over the top of contaminated groundwater, essentially your HVAC system and stuff causes the building to act like a chimney. And so essentially you're concentrating what's in the ground inside of a house where you're going to be breathing it. Whereas if you vent it to the atmosphere, it's going to get diluted very, very quickly, because particularly just because it spreads out, but also because, the Bay Area is pretty windy. So it will get diluted down to a safer level than if it actually went into the home. And then again, there is a lot of pollution in the air we breathe already, which we do, all the different agencies that study that, we keep track of those particular kinds of things, and we try to set up systems so that we don't contribute, to really increasing that toxicity of the air we breathe.
Angelica, does that answer your question? Would you like more information?
I think I'd like more information, because let's say, there's going to be parks there. It looks like there's going to be businesses and there's going to be homes. So people who live there for a prolonged amount of time, yeah, maybe they're outside and they're not going to get so much. They're not going to, I guess, inhale so much. I don't know. What's the threshold? If you're not getting a lot, then go ahead.
Hi, this is Cherie. I'm with the Water Board. I know this is an air question, but the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, they have in their permit requirements, they require that the discharge that comes off of the permitted equipment, which we could just call it like a stack or a pipe, that they have to have like a % efficiency. So if they have it 99.9% efficiency, then that means it's destroying almost any pollution that could come into the air. So the way to have the lowest amount of, I guess, outdoor air sources would be for the air board to have a very strict discharge limit. And that would be handled by the air board. And I don't know if anyone is here from the air board on this call today, but that would be that would effectively reduce, any air that came off the stack would essentially be zero emissions. So you wouldn't worry about that.
So is that going to be in the remedial plan, or that's online? Those, like, I'm calling them thresholds, but those numbers, like, so that it's that 99.9% being taken care of, or just, I don't know.
It's later in the process when they go to permit the system, when they design the system and permit the system.
Mhm.
So that would be later in the process. I don't know. I guess they're saying 2024, maybe. But your comment is now part of the record, so that's something that we would be addressing back to you. Like, okay, well, we want to make sure the system is going to be capable of reducing emissions,
Okay, great. Thank you for your explanation.
Okay.
Yeah, and it sounds like, Angelica, you're looking for assurance, that we're going to be, that all the new residents, not only the new residents, but those in the surrounding community are going to continue to be protected going forward. And I think some of those elements are covered in the community air monitoring plan, that would while the work is happening. But I think beyond that, you're just talking, it sounds to me like you're asking about just like long-term assurance. How do you feel certain that these systems that are in place are going to continue to be effective? Is that the question that you're getting at? I'm just trying to.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. Very
Okay.
accurate. Thank you.
So maybe, I don't know if that's something that that Chin or Liz, I don't know how you want to weigh in on that. Like, what are all because there's a number of precautions, and there's quite a bit of monitoring and evaluation that is built into maintaining these systems. So Liz, do you or Chin want to go further into to detail to sort of provide Angelica with some additional information? And then also if there's any additional technical reports that we could refer to, like, are some of those more details going to be more on that remedial design implementation plan, or, what are some other, plans that are going to be developed that, she could look to find kind of the level of details? Because this plan that we're talking about is more kind of conceptual, and I can understand how you might want, like, I want numbers, or I want to know, have that level of certainty, and those steps come a little bit after kind of this like bigger picture remedy is approved and the specifics of the design come into play. So anyways, I'll just stop there and let Liz or Chin or anyone else add on.
Hi, Angelica. Thank you for your question. I think that's a question that everybody probably is, concerned about every time they listen or hear about vapor intrusion and soil vapor and groundwater contamination. I have seen sites that they only have BIM system for years, and it has been working. It has been running, and we see that it can mitigate vapor going into the building now. For these sites, we are not planning to have only the vapor system under the building. We are going to install a vapor extraction system as well. So indefinitely is true, because we don't know when the system is going to be shutting down. However, we know that this another treatment system that we have, the extraction and pump and treat system, is going to help to reduce this concentration over the time, and then we're gonna be able to shut it down sometime in the future. The other question was how we ensure, like Asha said, this is just a very draft, just a planning, proposing a very general plan. We're gonna be having, after when this plan is approved, the developer is going to submit us to a more engineer design and with figures and more detailed numbers to us. And that's when we will know, what kind of system or machine they're going to be using and all that. I had one thing that I wanted to point it out to you. I know that, and I think probably this is more of a toxicology talk. However, when you see the draft in table 7, you will see a cleanup goal. And the cleanup goal are concentration that are, I'm trying to see how this can sound nice, but it's a concentration that we think that there is no harm for the residents living on it. And maybe Brian or Uta can explain more how this, screening cleanup goal has been calculated. But I know that they've been using like 70-year of long-term people living on the site, and that's how they calculate all these cleanup goals. And so when we get the more detailed engineering draft and all that stuff, we'll be also posting in the EnviroStore, which is going to be available for public to review it. Also, after all that happens, we are going to be, evaluating indoor air and sub slabs. Probably at the beginning, it's going to be several times in a year. And as we see that the system is working, then that's when we're gonna be, kind of like stretching a little bit more, and then do like maybe twice a year. And then after that, we'll be doing like once a year. And then what happened is every time after we do that, every 5 years, there's this big process. It's called a 5-year review document, which we need to go back and review and then see if all this proposed plan in this draft is even working in there. Because you know how regulation and science, every time it changes over the future, and we don't know what's going to happen in 5 years from now. So in 5 years, we're gonna come back and review all this, and then make sure that their number that they use is correct, and the machine, the remedy system is still working. And after that, that's how we will continue. But I think that's how much plan we have until that 5-year review for now.
I see that Brian has his camera on. He may want to weigh in here.
Yeah, I want to try to address Angelica's more general question, I think, about how are we protecting the air. Essentially, as we're trying to remove the contaminated air from the soil using the soil vapor extraction system, those systems are set up to have filtration systems, activated carbon filters, and things like that to remove out of the soil vapor, so that when we exhaust the air into the atmosphere, it's being cleaned. And those essentially are, engineering controls that use specific kinds of machinery to do that. And probably similar kinds of engineering controls could even be put on a very small scale on the vapor intrusion mitigation systems, which are the system that only protects like an individual building. And essentially anything that's being released into the atmosphere, it has to undergo scrutiny by the local air quality management district, because they don't want to add to the overall burden.
Thank you. Marika, did you have something you wanted to add? Okay, all right, great. So Angelica, and I just wanted to add on to what Liz and Brian were saying, that as part of this 5-year review process of the remedy, there will be public notification. So we'll be preparing a public notice, and we'll be notifying the neighbors that we're going through this process. We're evaluating the remedy, seeing if there's any shortcomings, if anything needs to be changed, modified, or if it's working great, and we're downgrading it or what. So just so that basically the neighborhood knows that we're taking an active role and continuing to make sure that the remedy is protecting the neighborhood. So, and that, that goes on into the future. We basically never step away. We are we are there with watchful eyes to make sure that these systems are functioning as designed. So Angelica, does that answer some of your questions or concerns? There's more to come, basically, is kind of the short answer. And I do encourage you to sign up to get those email alerts, because that way, any time a new document is uploaded onto our store, then you'll see, all of it's pretty complex and technical, and we're happy to, help you kind of, translate what's going on and where are we in the process, but we're taking a very active role in all of it. So did you have anything else to add on, Angelica, before I move on to Subaru's got his hand raised?
No, that was good for now. Yes. And then I'll
okay.
make sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You.
Super great questions.
Thank you.
All right.
Asha, my question is simple. You talked about giving alerts, for the next 5 years. So right now I'm in your alert mailing list. I don't need to do anything. I will keep on getting these alerts, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Great. Let's see. Do we have any other questions in the Q&A here? We addressed all of them. Okay. Anyone else on the phone, or anyone else that we haven't heard from that would like to ask a question? We're again, there's a number of different systems in place, and each one is quite technical. So we're happy to kind of go, do another walkthrough and help you sort of visualize how these systems work, if you'd like. Just provide some general education about that, or anything else. So definitely, take advantage of the resources that we have here in this meeting. With all the staff that have been working on this project for some time. And if you don't have any other questions for us, we are, open, anytime you've got my contact info and Liz's contact info on the slide here. We'd love to hear from you if you have any other questions that come along after the close of this meeting. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We'll plan on emailing a link to the recording. So for folks who weren't able to join us at the meeting tonight, they can review the materials and still provide us with input before the close of the public comment period. I'll just take another look and see if anybody else has got any questions for us. Let's see, Division Chief Thomas, is your hand just still raised from previously? Maybe.
Yes, I'll take it down. My apologies.
Okay. All right, no worries. And also just to let you know that we're going to be reaching out again because we'll be developing a remediation plan for the neighboring property. So you'll hear from us again. That'll be coming later this year. And like Liz mentioned, a week in advance before we do any of the work, if this plan is approved, a week in advance, we'll be mailing a work notice so you know that you've got some advance notification before things get moving. It looks like, Division Chief, your hand went back up? No? Okay. All right. Any last questions or thoughts? Any last words from any of the DTSC staff? Okay, well, great. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this meeting. We really appreciate your engagement, and we look forward to hearing more from you. Have a good night, everyone.